Are you tired of the cookie-cutter approach to education that's stuck in the last century? Are you seeking a win-win situation where your family thrives, your kid's education is revolutionary, and you still get to chase your own dreams? Welcome to Unschooled Unleashed. Unlock your child's genius. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, an unapologetic rebel dad and promoter of what many consider to be educational anarchy. You know the world isn't going to be won by those that just toe the line. It's the innovators, the visionaries, and the resilient spirits that are going to thrive. Our mission here is to forge those world changers within our very homes with less stress, energy, and time. Unschooled Unleashed starts now. Welcome back to another fantastic episode of Unschooled Unleashed. I'm your host, Matthew Jarecki, and today we're going to talk about balancing your life. How do you actually accomplish the things that are important to you in your personal life, be there for your family in the ways they need you, and have something in your career that is contributing at the highest level? I'm going to give, this is just a very light overview of something that's been life-changing for me. But with the intention of helping you actually be there for your children while still accomplishing your goals in your life. All right. You're never going to be perfect. Just remember that. But it is a worthwhile pursuit. When you're on your deathbed, you're going to look back and say, thank God I scrolled my phone so much. Thank God I watched a lot of television or played so many video games. Probably not. You're probably going to say, maybe I would have prioritized relationships a little bit more. Maybe I would have prioritized I could have achieved so much more in my professional world or whatever it might be. But you're the only one who can figure that out. And reflecting on this is important. And I'm going to give you kind of a framework on how to do this. It's a very light framework. If you want more than this, reach out. Let me know. And I can actually start to dive into this a little bit more. You're going to be busy, but it's because you're motivated and you're fired up to actually get it done. So busyness will come either way, to be honest with you. It's whether you're actually accomplishing something that's important to you. Other people will take your time if you don't go over and protect it. So, but if that all sounds interesting to you, stay tuned and let's dive in. Today, we're going to talk about how to actually balance work, kids, and personal life without sacrificing your own sanity or your goals, and why defining what matters in each area changes everything. Now, admittedly, I am not very good at this, which is exactly why I've had to create a system in order to prioritize what matters, because I have the whole shiny object syndrome, where I see something new, I gravitate towards it because it sounds promising, and as soon as I exhaust my interest in it, I'm on to the next thing. That is a way to fill up all your time with things that really don't matter much. Now, it adds, there is some value in it, meaning I get exposure to different things, I get to learn about different things, but I could spend every hour of my day doing this. And I'll dive down one thing, then leave it, and move on to the next thing. That creates quite an imbalance. Now, I'm not saying imbalance is bad, all right, and I'll get into that. But what I am saying is, if you're not purposeful with your time, it will just disappear. Everyone's struggling for your attention. Advertisers, your children, your family, even your own needs are struggling for attention. And if we aren't intentional with ourselves, then we will not be able to show up in the way that we know we were designed to show up. We just need to decide how that looks. So let's dive into it. So balance isn't about time. It's about priorities, okay? So there's this big movement about work-life balance, right? And this has been going on for a while now. There's some who argue that work-life balance doesn't exist and all this stuff, and it goes back and forth. The pendulum swings one way or the other. So let's just kind of dive into this a little bit. You'll never have enough time, but you will have to control how you use your time. All right. There's only 24 hours in a day. It's our most valuable asset is our time. You only get so much, and there's nothing you can do to manipulate it. There's only 24 hours in a day. You could go without sleep, but there's penalties without that. You could give up certain things, and that's actually what we're proposing in this episode is there are things you should be dropping. Balance starts by defining what success looks like in your work, your parenting, and personal life. So, for example, what I do is I break out my life into what I call categories of life. Now I have a separate one that's career and another one that's personal, and everything falls within those two categories. In my career, and you can call it anything you want, professional is another one I've used in the past, I list out everything that I do that relates to my occupation, that relates to any kind of business that I have, or anything that I do that I need to show up for over and over again. That's more of, I don't really know how to separate it. Intuitively, I just go, okay, my podcast is professional. Therefore, it's going to go under career. Now, it may fall in other categories in my personal life that direct me to do that, but I don't put that in my personal life. Okay, if that makes sense. So career is something that I'm working towards building something with that's external of any other categories in my personal life, if that makes sense. It's hard to do this without examples. I'm going to give some examples as we go. Personal is everything else. So some of the areas that I have, or categories of life as I call them, that are personal are fatherhood. That's one. And I give them my own unique name. Marriage, experiences, my faith, my inner circle. I have another one that's just maintaining my responsibilities. This could be just like paying the bills and stuff like that. So if that one's not clear, it's a little ambiguous, but everything falls into that, just being an adult. My physical care, and then I have another one for self-care. And then lastly, I have one about mastering my money. So this is income related, investing, all that stuff, how to grow it and be responsible with it where I don't lose it all. So a lot of different ways I could go. Let me see if there's anything more. I actually have a big whiteboard written on my wall where I do this podcast, and it lists out my priorities in each. Nope, no others. Thought I had them all. So that's kind of how it breaks down. So for self-care, I call it self-care. You can call it anything you want. You might even have different categories, but you should have some main categories. If you look at the Wheel of Life, I think it's by Zig Ziglar. He's got, I think, 5 different categories. That's the minimum. I've expanded to those ones, just so you know. And I've adopted some, I've combined some. This changes, and I want it to be fluid because it's going to change with my life. But if I were to go over and say, I want to focus on my self-care, well, one of the priorities is finding something that energizes me. That's one of my things that I do, or I do something that energizes me. So that might point towards something professional. Doing the podcast energizes me because I'm helping people. I'm contributing to society, and it's going to be something that lasts beyond me. That's a form of self-care for me. So see how that kind of points over to it. So you don't want to get too particular, and you want to remain fluid, but that's kind of the interplay between the two. My personal life should point towards the professional and guide it in that sense. Within that, each category of life has a priority. For example, let's see if I can choose a good one. Let's use fatherhood, for example, and forgive me if I'm making some static. I'm moving the mic around so I can actually read what I have on my board. So under my fatherhood category, I want a deep relationship with each child that outlasts the teenage years and places me in this advisory role in their life in the future, where I'm not making the decisions for them, but they do consider me in their inner circle and ask my opinion on things. But I don't direct their life, and it's not forced. It's because they respect me. It's because we have a relationship. It's because they believe I have some wisdom to pass on, and I want to pass on my wisdom. I've worked my whole life to gain this wisdom, and I don't want it to just die with me. It's another reason I'm doing the podcast, is I think there's some wise things in here that will help other people. It might not be for everyone, but the people it's for, they're my tribe, and they're going to benefit from it, and it's going to change not just their life, but their children's lives. That is a good reason to continue doing this. It's a good reason for me to get my stuff together in my fatherhood category, because if I'm not aiming for that goal, or really result is how I like to think of it, I'm aiming for this result in the future, well, I better make sure that everything leading up to that points to it, and I have to actively do it. If you were just to set a sail in a ship across an ocean, you could end up in the North Pole, the South Pole, or anywhere in between. That's a directionless ship, and you might even be going in circles, and you don't even know it. You need to have direction. It can change, it can be fluid, but even just a little bit of direction changes the game in the way you handle yourself. And when I talk about these results, these are literally the priorities within that category. And life becomes very complicated once you have children and you get married and you have real adult responsibilities and your parents start aging and all these different things. Stuff pops up in life. It's helpful for me and many other people that I've talked to actually have your goals written down, or your results that you're after written down. Another result that I'm after with fatherhood is I want them to be prepared for life. I want healthy and whole adult children that are able to cope with all the things in life that life will have to throw at them. And I want them to be able to just thrive in society in a very functional way. So that drives a lot of the decisions that I make. So when I'm stuck, I have this all written down. When I'm stuck in indecision, for example, let's say homeschooling versus sending them to traditional schooling versus unschooling versus sending them to my own school, creating my own school, how do I balance that out? How do I make that decision? Well, unless I'm clear of my actual goals in life, then I can't actually make that decision. I'm just at a whim. I'm directionless. And my goal is to have, when I make a decision, a big decision about how I'm going to proceed, I can actually look through each category of my life, find results that I want to achieve that are similar that I can do within one big, let's say, project. For example, starting the MindFire Lab, which is a school we're starting this fall. The reason I decided to do that is because, one, it meets a lot of my career goals, my professional goals, meaning it uses my talents and my gifts to help other people, because that's a big motivator of mine. And it also helps my children, because they're going to have now a circle. But now we're going to have a community for just not my children, but for other kids too. And that is very energizing to me. So I not only get a great environment for my children to grow in, I'm creating a community around them, which also helps me in my personal life, meaning like self-care, because that's another thing. I have community. That's a priority within that. It also achieves professional goals. This is a business. It's going to bring in an income. I'm going to work on something where I can contribute maximally, and then I get rewarded with an income, just like I do at the hospital right now. But this is dependent on my hard work. So one of the financial goals I have is to not make money by the hour, but instead make money by the project or the result that I'm creating. So that way I don't have to work 48 to 80 hours a week in order to achieve the income I want. Because I can scale with the business and I can hire with the business, and then I could focus my gifts and my talents in one single area and find other people who are talented in another area that I'm not as talented, and we can grow it. And that's going to be way more efficient and way more profitable if I do it that way. So it achieves a financial goal. On top of that, I mean, I could go on. It's my children get to see me modeling for them doing something that's a little risky, but it aligns with my character, it aligns with my gifts, and they get to see me take that risk. So I'm actually modeling the behavior that I want for my children as well. And I wouldn't necessarily recognize that unless I spend a lot of time thinking about it, if that makes sense. And the way I'm able to process things is actually writing it down. And I'm able to connect the dots between all these different categories of life. So, moving on. Identify the non-negotiables in each category of life. So in parenting, this might be reading with your children every night, and this gets into the micro as opposed to the macro. You might say, I want to make healthy and whole adults that are totally functional in society and thrive. I'm just making something up off the, what am I trying to say? Just off the top of my head. If you identify that, then you might go over to the micro level and say, reading with your child every night is going to build up their reading comprehension, their reading skills. It actually meets the other goal of spending one-on-one time with them and building that relationship. That might be worth doing. It hits 2 goals right off the bat. Showing up to their events might be another micro way you can do that, these little small ways. And you go, okay, well, showing up to their events builds their confidence because they feel valued. And if that's in line with making your kids feel loved and valued, which is a priority of mine, I'm going to show up at their events. And I got a lot of results, not a ton, not overwhelming, but a lot of results that I want, or priorities, with my children, and I just go over and try and find the ones that are maximally meeting each of those. And I don't want to forget any of them. That's why they're priorities. So then I just spend my energy and my time in the ones that are most impactful to them. And that's one of those little secrets. And the more you can go over and find within one category, more actions you can find within one category that meets all these different priorities, that's something that should be you should pay attention to that. That's something that can be very impactful. And then if you find one thing that actually meets multiple goals in multiple categories of life, that's gold. That's the secret sauce right there. So when you identify these non-negotiables in each domain, in your personal life, self-care, I get enough sleep. So I'm going to get about 7.5 to 8.5 hours of sleep a night. Again, I might not be doing it every night. I get really exhausted and I'm working a night shift tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get that. Time for sleep is a priority, and I'm going to continue to figure that out. Fitness, faith, hobbies, all these things are non-negotiables for me. Again, I might break them. I might not always it's an aspirational goal for some of these things. It's what I'm working towards. If I were a complete individual, there's no one that's a complete individual. It just isn't going to happen. So it's mainly aspirational goals that eventually I form into. And then I grow from there. And then you just kind of maintain that and figure out ways to do it even better. Moving on, blend, don't compartmentalize. So instead of separating the roles, integrate them. So invite your kids to projects that you're working on, or share what you're building, right? So for MindFire Lab, the school I'm creating, one of the cool things that this does is I can invite my children into it to help me build it. So they're going to be helping me build anything on the inside that I need to do. They're going to be involved in they're going to watch me actually do the whole process. I've invited my son to edit some of the videos I put on the website. And it's working on a goal together as a family. And there I'm able to model healthy habits and work and starting a business and like the whole thing with, putting myself out there, being a little uncomfortable, taking this risk, but knowing my purpose and showing them that that's where I'm headed, even though there is risk. That invites them in the process. We're actually able to build a close relationship and have some fun along the way. That's really cool. So this MindFire Lab is something I'm pursuing because it meets so many goals. As far as my marriage is concerned, my wife's helping out and we have a goal together. She's actually fired up about this as well. So these types of things that you might do, when you prioritize something with each category, find something to do that meets all these different categories' needs, and you're able to handle all these priorities in one fell swoop. And I think that's what I kind of mean with blending the priorities together, not compartmentalizing and think you have to address each one individually. No, you're looking for ways to combine them all together. As well as, blending these priorities all together into, you're not starting your day doing this and then switching gears. Like, although there's some value in that, and I'm not suggesting you don't do that, but making life a little bit more fluid. Like, you can have family time in the middle of professional time in that sense. I'm looking for ways to do that. That's one of the reasons I want to start MindFire Labs, because I can involve my children. Because it's hard to find time with them in a busy life when I'm working, 48 hours plus a week. I can't do that working at the hospital, so I want to find something else. And that's where I can invite them in. So I'm not compartmentalizing it, I'm blending it all together. Moving on. Redefine productivity. So it's presence over output. So at home, your presence is more powerful than your productivity. At work, be clear on your goals to help you do less, but do the stuff you do better. All right? When you show up for work and you're clear on what you want to accomplish, you are going to be single focused and get a heck of a lot more done. But you're going to have to prioritize. At home, just focusing on you being present with the children, not distracted on your phone all the time, is one of the ways you do that. You're going to have time for being very present with them and times for work as well. But you're going to be present in whatever you're working on, if that makes sense. So turn off your phone during dinner. Use that time to build relationships. Now you have it as a part of your routine. You can talk as a family. You can do all these different things. Just remember these little habits where you're present in whatever you're doing will compound over time. Moving on, model the life you want your kids to emulate. Now, I always get ahead of myself, so I've already talked a little bit about this, but kids learn by imitation. Show them how to live a values-aligned, purpose-driven life. If you try and get them to live the life that you want to live, but you don't do it, they're going to have a very difficult time navigating that. They're going to be compelled to do it, but not have the tools to do it. So that to me says I need to put my money where my mouth is. I want to teach my kids entrepreneurship. I need to be an entrepreneur. I want to teach my kids work-life balance. I need to have work-life balance. And I use work-life balance as in the general sense, meaning I'm able to be successful in all, is really how I'm defining it. However you get there. Your children are always watching how you handle pressure, failure, rest, responsibility, more, right? They're going to pick up on those habits. They're going to internalize it and take that into the future with them and impress that upon your grandkids. Take that very seriously. And your own life will be better if you take it seriously. But it's easier for me to think of it when I do it for my children. Moving on, use your schedule as a weapon, not a trap. I alluded to this earlier. Create weekly rhythms that reflect your values so you protect what actually matters most. Again, this can be dinner time is a time to spend as a family talking about whatever happened in the day, maybe making fun games and doing stuff together. Maybe use it for educational purposes, and just have fun with it. I mean, it can be anything, but you're actually intentional in that time. And you have it every day for the most part, and that's kind of the rhythm. Automate, delegate, and eliminate what drains you or doesn't move the needle. That's the goal. You go over and invest on what you're gifted at and delegate the stuff that you're not. Or get to minimum competence and just automate that as much as you can. But get rid of stuff that drains your energy. And your schedule should reflect stuff that is important to you. So block out your calendar to put stuff in there. Like if you want a family movie night every week, then you have to put that in there. Block the time out. Don't schedule over it. This is where it's very difficult for busy people. But you have to be intentional with this time. Any unblocked time will fill up. And then you just have to follow through, which is easier said than done. Lastly, I want to talk about giving yourself permission to flex in the season. Some weeks are going to be family heavy. That's good. And this is going to be at the expense of everything else. Maybe your business or work or making money, whatever you want to frame it as. And that's okay. Some weeks are going to be heavy in business and your family will be kind of on the sidelines watching. That's okay for a season. Again, we all have to do this, right? Some days are meant for work. Other days are meant for relationships and rest. Give yourself some grace with this, all right? Because you're not going to be perfect at it. I am by far not perfect at it. But as a priority of my self-care, of going over and scheduling in some time like this and making sure I'm not stressing out and always feeling behind, because if I don't schedule this out, if I don't go over and plan this out, I start to feel very stressed all the time because I feel like I should always be doing something. If I schedule in the time for work and I schedule in the time for play, self-care, whatever, all this stuff, then I don't stress out as much. It's really quite a relief. Just when you mess up, give yourself the grace to adjust and come back later without the guilt. If you're intentionally focusing in on this, you will improve. You just need to make sure you're following through with the introspection and what actually happened, to diagnose what went off the rails, and then to correct for next time so that way you can follow through a little bit better with your plan. But it won't be perfect. It never will be, but it will be incrementally better over time. Some actionable tips for you guys. Use time blocks to create theme hours. So maybe it's something where you're going to do work, learning. Maybe it's building relationships with your kids, the whatever, one-on-one time, or maybe it's family time. Use these time blocks to plug into your calendar, and you can actually make them repeatable. Now, this isn't specific enough to take action, okay? So you're probably going to have to do more planning than just throwing in time blocks, these theme hours or whatever you want to call them. You're going to have to get more specific and basically prioritize what you're going to do within that time and make sure you label that. But at a macro level, you can create these themes. At a micro level, then when it's actually time to do it, you have to define it out ahead of time and then follow through, okay? Write 1 to 2 sentence results for each category that you have in your life that's important. I always state it as a result. This is what I will have. Like, for example, excuse me, with the box truck to RV conversion that I'm working on, my goal is to have an RV, a stealth RV that I can live in full time with all my family. And we have all the amenities that we would need to be able to do that, to not make it an inconvenience. Yes, it'll be tight space, but how can we manage that? That's the challenge, and that's what I work towards. And I continue to work towards that. I know why I'm going to work at the hospital every day is because I want this in our life sooner rather than later. But that's a result I have. I have a box truck that, and I just finished the sentence, and then I put the purpose behind it. why do I want this? So it's the what and the why. When I combine those two sentences together, I have a priority. And now I just got to go over and put underneath what needs to be done that will impact this the most. That's how you do it. Do a weekly review. What worked well? What felt off? How can you improve? In fact, if you can ask yourself daily when you go over and do these work blocks, what went well? What did you accomplish? What could you improve on? Those are two questions you can ask yourself every day, and you will get better. And when you celebrate what you accomplished, even if it wasn't what you wanted, that's progress. All right. And that will make you feel accomplished, and it will help your mental health, and it will help you motivate you because you're getting stuff done. I usually write these out and really celebrate it. Like, feel good about it. Like, feel that feeling, because that's what you're working for, right? Use a calendar, a shared calendar with your spouse, maybe even your kids, depending on how old they are, to help you navigate the complexity of scheduling. And involve your kids in the week too. Sometimes I feel like as the father, I have to, as I prioritize everything, as I go through my categories of life, what is my priority? And I try and fill in the gaps on the micro level. This is what I'm going to do to fulfill that. Here's the thing. You can actually ask your kids, specific to this, the fatherhood thing for me, the category of life, fatherhood. I can just ask them how they would feel like we have a deeper relationship. I wouldn't put it in those words, but I would say something like, hey, do you feel like we're getting enough time together? No. What would you want to do? Like that we could spend time together with that would really feel great. I'm framing it the right way, but saying it wrong. How can we build our relationship more? What do you want to do to be able to do that? Find something they're excited about. Delegate it to them, because they know a lot of times, I found out. And if they don't, then you might have some work to do, but that's fine. You'll figure it out. In the beginning, especially when they're young, you'll have to figure out most of it out. But as they get a little bit older and they get used to understanding this stuff and how they're able to build connection with you, because they really just want your attention. How can I give you that attention? And they'll give you ways to be able to do that. So in conclusion, you don't need perfect balance, and you don't need to be perfect. You just need purposeful imbalance. When your goals are clear and your rhythms reflect your values, okay, you stop reacting and start leading. And that's when your work, parenting, and personal life all rise together. And it's the game we play, is trying to balance all this together and and accomplish what we've prioritized in our life with more certainty. And with that, I'll end today's episode. So stay curious, stay unschooled, and stay away from the algebra nightmares. I'll catch you in the next episode. So here's where we roll up our sleeves and bring out the big guns. If you support our mission, then please leave a review. On Unschooled Unleashed, we are talking about using a radical approach to education in today's world, and the more 5-star reviews we have, the more people will feel comfortable with the ideas, strategies, and principles we discuss. It gives legitimacy to our message, and the podcast's algorithm prioritizes us so we can reach more people. You may even have your 5-star review read on our podcast. Before I let you go, I have to pause and say this from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Your presence here is the fuel that ignites this movement. I am incredibly moved that you trust in us enough to click play. You, my friends, are the caped heroes in this story, the guardians of your family's learning journey, and a beacon of hope for your community. Be bold. Do what you think is best for you and your family. Thanks again for tuning in and taking this courageous leap outside of the box for this educational revolution. Welcome to the front line.